Okay, good morning. I'm off to a bit of a late start. It is coming on 08:30 in the morning on Friday the 13th, September Friday the 13th. We'll see if it lives up to its name. We're still in the lunar Sspopiikimi when the choke cherries ripen. And I've got a skunk here to pick up at this first condo complex on the north side, Wild Rose, and then got another skunk to pick up on the south side, and maybe one other trap to check on the north side here along the way, just to see if anything's there. Yeah, I've been trying to get out and check a couple of traps, the ones that I think are most likely to hit right away in the morning before even clients call me, so that I can get on with my day. We're just a weekend away from the launch of my new program for SAMIS, the Indigenous Arts and Entrepreneur Program. So my days have been really busy, but I figure I'll take the camera along with me today, give a little update how things have been going in that matter and others, and yeah, we'll see what the day brings us. Starting off though, not atypically, with skunks. Morning, Skunky. Good morning. Ready to get out of there? Oh, sorry. We'll get you out of there. Okay, I've got skunk number one still in the back of the Jeep, and now just coming over here to check a second trap. Now, there probably won't be anything in here because I imagine she'd have called before she went to work. Car's not out there, but we'll take a peek. And negative. I can see over there the trap is still open. So we'll take skunk number one to the river bottom and then go pick up skunk number two on the south side. Okay, here we go for skunk number two. I'll start off taking my payment. There he is. That's a pretty animal right there. Pretty animal sleeping right there. Back down to Indian Battle Park with skunk number two, and I've been seeing a couple of magpies around in the river bottom, so maybe later today, if I have an opportunity, we'll go over to Sspopiikimi and check out whether there's magpies back in the forest main, because that would be a significant phenological event, and a cycle that I've only queued into this year, as those of you who follow the channel know, with Alex's release in the forest main during a time when the magpies are not down there. They're not down there because there's too many nesting other birds that are going to attack them, and they can hardly fly at that time anyway because they've got they're going through their molt. So they're getting their flight feathers back. Derek is too at the house, and yeah, today I've seen 5 or 6 magpies down here. Now, I don't know if that's going to be the same in the forest main because it is a bit more open down this way, especially coming in, you're passing the big park areas and that kind of thing. So it might be that well, we'll see what happens if we get to the forest main. Let's check out the skunky release. So I'll bring the client's trap back, and then we'll be probably go take Polioli for his big walk, then go to work at Samas. The polio. Come on, big boy. Yeah, you're running out. Okay, I'll show you how things are looking at the office here. My classroom, so to speak. This thing's classroom slash office slash retail space slash workroom. They're going to be training in computer skills for part of their business work in the first couple of weeks. So I got their computer lab set up on the outskirts. Got a video conference unit for when they talk back and forth with Business Link at Edmonton. Also, probably if we can figure it out, get online with it, or hook a computer up to it, maybe we can have some entertainment while we do artwork. Got my orientation agenda all set up for Monday. And the first project they're gonna get on to Monday afternoon for team building is gonna be painting canvas to make teepee liners, decorated teepee liners. I'm gonna have to go and get new, this is still the same old smudge box and the same old contents from when I ran a program with Samas 2 years ago. So I need to empty those contents, and I'm gonna take those out with me and the coolies this weekend and get some more badger dirt. I also need a fork stick for the coals as well as coals themselves, and we'll be, sweetgrass, of course, we'll be set up to do our daily smudges here. So that's one thing I gotta do this weekend. The other thing is create a rolling cart for this whiteboard. I've already bought all the materials for it. I just gotta make it. So that's back at the house, and I'll work on that in the backyard this weekend. What do we got over here? A couple of, these are all bins, so everybody will have a bin to kind of keep their projects in as we go. Those that'll fit in there. I've got a box full of some of the tools we're going to be starting with, just scissors and pens and drop cloths and some pliers and stuff. They're going to be doing some beaded jewel work in the latter part of the first week here. They've got some hard felt and a bunch of stuff to start doing beaded jewel work. And yeah, I guess that's about it. It's all, we're ready to go. The paperwork's ready, the facility's ready, you know, there's just a couple of things. The cart, the smudge, there might be one or two supplies I could use. My office is still pretty humble. Did get a photocopy machine, copier slash photocopy machine, which is nice. Washroom's all set up, but you don't need to see that. Oh, I'm still waiting for a coffee maker. I think the boss lady's bringing that today. I'll put the coffee maker here with the microwave. I gotta get some coffee making supplies. some cups and stuff just to start guys out. Breakout room. But really the space they're going to be able to, the students are going to look at this space and see how they want it designed. This is just entry level. Ryan preparing the space, but they're gonna actually work with this space because it's going to be a retail store too. They need to think about how they want to set that up so that the incoming clients can have a storefront to go to and see a little bit of the craft work, but not necessarily the, anything we don't want them to see as far as messiness or what have you. They don't need to be, clients in here rummaging around when we got laptops in that area. So the organization of the space may change, but we're ready to roll otherwise. Yeah, couple 2-3 days of rain, all the plants you can out here are really absorbing it. Pond is certainly swollen. Those rose hips are looking pretty good. They're not ready to squeeze yet. When you gather those rose hips, you got to be able to just squeeze the hip and it shoots out a little seed packet. You want to get those seeds out of there. So still waiting for that, but they must be starting to put out an odor. They must be getting ripe because they're starting to attract wasps and that kind of thing. Really cool to see the, I don't know if you can see that golden strip behind me. Yeah, you must see it. All that golden stuff, that's all dogbane. That's all hemp. So I'm going to probably have my students coming out to gather some of that at one point in their training. Got to show them how to twine that dogbane and stinging nettle and the different qualities between both of them, and to gather some of the natural beads, so to speak, out here in the coulees. But yeah, I figured I'd come down. It's about 2 o'clock in the afternoon. My business stuff is over for the day. Well, to some extent. I'm going to go home and work on building a rolling cart to carry the whiteboard for our classroom. Whiteboard / chalkboard, as it were. But other than that, kind of got the afternoon. So take a little walk around. I might find I need a few things for our smudge altar in the classroom as well. Pair of Saskatoon tongs, and so I might find some of that out here too. Some badger dirt. But what I'm really looking for is those magpies. Have the magpies return to the river bottom on this side of the river. So far, no sign of them. Just entering the forest main now and noticing how this willow patch that the sapsuckers worked through the summer, this willow patch is just dried out, dead. Well, probably not dead. We'll see how it comes back next season. I'm sure it's going to pop back all right, but it's really affected compared to its neighboring, willows that weren't tapped by the sapsuckers. They are still green-leaved for the most part. There's a whole patch of them along the back there too. So sapsuckers do have an effect, at least in the season. We'll see how it turns out next year. When I'm looking out at the world around me, I recognize that everywhere the landscape is shaped. Even in our so-called, nature areas or what have you. Everywhere the landscape is shaped from its history of our activities as well as the activities of other species. Our whole community, our whole kind of eco community acts on that landscape and shapes it to be the way it is. But as individuals, we also connect, not even as individuals, even as groups. Sometimes as groups, as cultures, even. We might ascribe stories to areas of the landscape. You know, all the different origin stories, for instance, of the Blackfoot bundles are associated with places where those happenings occurred that brought about that bundle. And as individuals, we do the same thing as do cultures and groups and that kind of thing. I mean, this was the week of 9/11. A lot of people have associations, geographic associations with 9/11 and architectural associations with it. So we connect stories to place, right? Because they occur in places. And for most of my, tenure here in Sspopiikimi, which I can at least speak of my work here as tenured because nobody's ever taken that away. As far as my tenure here, for the most part, this became a personal, storied landscape. And the best of those stories were when I was able to merge, when natural events merged with training I was doing in Blackfoot Orthodox disciplines, or some, in some way, I was connecting it with some other aspect of life, right? Because I like when those connections and convergences occur. So for the most part, for me, this is a really storied landscape, and I've shared some of that. In fact, the Helen Schuler Nature Center, if you go down there, they have a map that they invested in. They hired an artist to create a map to name all the places in this park. And those were my names, my associations, the bat tree, the place where you get ticks, and the wide south pool, and the beaver lodge, and the forest main, and the wet meadows, and all of these different, and I gave them English names and Blackfoot names, and they created kind of a Winnie the Pooh like forest 100-acre wood type of map that they had an artist draw. Natalie Asplund, she's one of our local graphic novelists, and it was really cool. But now when I visit this place, and in fact when I'm around, just moving around in Lethbridge in general, the place has less of that just storied aspect, or at least the tone of the story has changed. Because I used to walk around here and it's always just positivity, all of the good memories from here. And now it's good memories, but it's also like, there's, because of different losses and mourning and that kind of thing, there's other associations. I was driving to pick up that second skunk this morning, that one on the south side, and that residence is kind of over by the hospital. And as I was driving down 10th Avenue, all of a sudden I had a memory of being sucker punched while I was driving. A relatively recent memory. And what went on. And it was a bad association, but it was something that I had kind of put out of mind until going through the place, passing through that area, and then the place hit me with that memory. And, you know, all of us who've returned to places that we haven't visited for a while probably have that experience of, you know, well, for sure, you get that experience of memories coming forth from that place that you might not have even recalled ever again, or, you know, bothered with if you hadn't come through that place. So it's storied, but in a weird way, where, you know, if you have negative associations with it, it feels less storied than haunted. And it got me thinking, like, you know, what are ghosts? Are there more than one kind of ghosts? Because there's ghosts. There's ghosts, you know, which some of us feel like we've had experiences with. But then there's also a very kind of familiar ghost, which probably all of us have had experiences with, which is we're trying to go through our day and we run into a memory, you know, and that can happen a lot in association with place. So, you know, I get it. People that want to, when things go south, and this kind of, it's connected, I think, to the culture, the mainstream globalizing culture. The idea that, you know, things aren't working out here, just relocate. You know, these people aren't working out for me, I make new family, new friends. The culture of disconnect, of which you know, everyone who I'm talking to here on YouTube is at least some part of, including myself. We're all wrapped up, entwined in the culture of disconnect because it colonized everywhere. And so it's interesting in a situation where, you know, you stay put. Because I didn't, you know, for part of my life. Oh, there's a deer over here. She's like, why are you yelling in the forest? I'm sorry, Mama. I'm just sleeping over here. See if I can get her in the frame. Her and her fawn back there. Oh, you're not gonna be able to see them. Oh, there's actually 3 or 4, maybe a little family back there. Any case, where was I? I've lost my track of thought. All I know is that a good deal of my day now, given the events of this year, is spent in a kind of a grieving state, and I pass through places and I'm haunted by them more than I am enjoying the experience, and whether that has anything to do with what hauntings and ghosts are actually about. You know, I kind of think it does, especially with, it's the places that really reveal what ghosts and all that stuff are about, I think, because we know, like, okay, we can say, okay, something happened in that place, and maybe somebody, you know, something happened to somebody in that place, and now that, whatever that spirit, we connect the ghosts to that whole thing where you have a haunted place. The haunting is usually the ghost, but real life experience will tell you, especially I think the older you get. I mean, I hope it's not the case. I hope it's not the case that the older I get, the more haunted my life becomes. It could go that way, you know. I could see it going that way in the wrong mind frame. But I'm hoping that I come back to where all my places are kind of storied and I'm happy with life. I'm not there right now. I'm still really like reeling and in shock and in grieving, but kind of at the same time confident in where I'm going, and scared still about what's to come. that's all personal stuff. All right, so there you have it. There's my personal updates. A little thinking about what haunting and ghosts are about. My kind of daily routine for the week has been pretty mundane. It's like I wake up, I run around and check a couple of traps. I've been getting a lot more calls for raccoons than skunks lately. Although I haven't been catching many raccoons, I've been getting calls. I went to one residence way on the far end of the south side off of 43rd, and they had a couple of raccoons down in their chimney. I took a look down with the flashlight, could see them really plain as day. There was a young one and a mother. And it wasn't too young, you know, it's about what it should be for this time of the year. I just kind of barked down there a little bit at them and stuff, got them annoyed, and then 2 nights later they were gone. You know, I checked down there again, third day or something, and they had departed. I set a trap but never caught any of them, and so it kind of ended up better that way because the homeowner was a real animal lover. She'd rather see them both go together than be separated, and so on their own, with some provocation, they found alternate places to live. And the way that I'm getting calls, I kind of feel like maybe raccoons are looking for places right now. And so the typical places that they choose are fireplaces, chimneys. And if they're in the chimney, it's really not that bad if you don't use the chimney. In fact, I've had calls this week from people asking me about raccoons in their chimneys and this, and I've tried to convince them, you know, every time somebody has that issue, I've set up a couple of traps to catch them, but for the most part, I've tried to convince people, why don't you just let them stay there? If you're not using the chimney, let them stay there for the winter. They're not going to hurt anything in there. You know, if they're in your crawl space in the attic, which is another place they go, that's a whole different story because they do a bunch of damage. They shit and piss up there and compact the, compact all the insulation, make trails, you know. Sometimes, you know, because they make kind of latrines, areas where they piss and shit all the time. Sometimes that'll seep through and start going through the ceiling. Like a couple of years ago, there was that ceiling on the north side that I had to just break through to get into that raccoon nest. So you don't want them in the crawl space, and you can kind of take a look around your house and take inventory of the little corners on the roof where they might be able to push up through the soffit, you know, into another section of roofing and get in the crawl space. You also want to look at the tree limbs that are by your house and whether they are allowing raccoons access to the top of your house. I mean, it's pretty simple to keep raccoons out because really they're only going to use, for the most part, I mean, it's not 100%, but for the most part, what they're using are attic crawl spaces and chimneys, right? So if you cut off access to your roof, that solves the whole problem immediately. And if they're in your chimney, you know, you might consider, are you an animal lover? Is there a problem there? Can they just hang out for the winter? They might shit a couple times on your roof, but it's not going to cause any damage, etc. I don't know. So yeah, I've been getting raccoon calls. So my mornings have just been mostly setting traps. Not too many animals caught. Seen this morning there was a couple, but typically they're, you know, this week, average morning, there might be 0.8 animals, not even a full 0.1. So things are shifting, and most of my day, as soon as I'm done with the animals, I usually go take Polly for his walk, and then I go to Sspopiikimi, do my stuff at Sspopiikimi. That takes me into the early evening, late afternoon. And then depending on what's happening, I might continue doing some kind of work into the late afternoon or some kind of project, or I might just go, you know, take care of the kids and that kind of thing. So my days have been pretty mundane, and it hasn't been a lot to videotape and not a lot of excitement. However, I did get a videographer come in from the Smithsonian Institution doing a documentary that includes a prairie rattlesnake sequence. And so I brought him out to our most scenic local area, which is the Box Canyon on the north end of the Blood Reserve, Sspopiikimi, and set up there. Really did just like a whole day's work filming this rattlesnake sequence of a snake, you know, moving toward its rookery. Ultimately, it's a little bit confused because the way that the storyline, the narrative is that this is a female snake going toward the rookery, then she goes into the rookery and then she has babies. In reality, those female snakes go to the rookery right away at the beginning of the season. They might say, I'm sure they'll say that, and then toward the end of the season they actually have their babies there. So we were shooting a beginning of the season kind of a clip. And, you know, working on nature films, you start realizing this. It's like, wow, you know, like, how are they going to make this work on people? Well, people are maybe not that engaged that they're going to catch things like, okay, let's look at the vegetation, and is this depicting the proper time of year? That kind of thing. Yeah, it's a fun thing getting involved. Every time that I'm involved in one of these like documentaries or films or something, I learn a little bit of something extra from it. You know, it helps me out in different ways. But for sure, in kind of like sorting through what I see on the media compared to what might be reality, you know. So I had that experience this week. I had one day with him. Otherwise, I was just going right through my regular routine. And today, the routine is a little bit broken because the kids Chelsea took them last night, took them to her parents' house. She had a shift today, 7 to 7 shift. So she decided to bring them out there. She would go on her shift this morning, and then her dad's going to go and run them off to their dad probably around now or later, maybe a little bit later this afternoon, evening, and they'll be with their dad for the weekend. And so I don't know, I think we have in mind going to a tattoo festival tonight. So that's something out of the ordinary, out of my routine, but we'll see when we get there. All right, it's about 1900 hours, 7 o'clock in the evening, and I kind of didn't expect this. I was at home, I'd done a little bit of my woodwork project, and I was just kind of chilling out, waiting for Chelsea to get home. Figured we'd go to that tattoo thing. Lo and behold, I got a snake call, and this one's bringing me all the way out to, looks like the bottom of Paradise Canyon, where there's a snake reportedly caught up in netting. And I haven't had a case of that as yet this year. If I had gotten through the season without a single case of snake in garden netting, that'd have been nice, but that'd have been a record. So this snake's not gonna let that happen. Unfortunately, in most cases, it ends up being, or at least in 50% of the cases, it ends up meaning death for the snake by asphyxiation. So trying to get there quick, hoping to rescue the snake. We're gonna look at what the situation is when we get there. Yeah, I just want to look at the situation first.
I never want to tell people about this because the worst part is people, I hate snakes, we'll kill them.
Oh. Yeah, no, this is typical, kind of caught up in the netting, can't get through it. All right, that is not too bad a situation though. Oh, sometimes they get really wrapped up in there, so this one doesn't look like it's going to be too tough to deal with. Hey, oh, you're kind of stuck. Couple freaking out. I thought my phone was going out again. I was like, no. All right. This is not so bad. Yeah, I've come across some that are so stuck in these. Like 50% of the time when they hit this kind of stuff, this is garden netting. This is somebody's garden netting.
That's just, I think it's terrible.
Yeah. Yeah, most of the time they asphyxiate before I am able to rescue them, or they shock out from the stress of being handled, you know?
Really?
Yeah. All right, here we go. Free.
I'll send some of these to you. Beautiful. So sorry, you said there's a couple of ones up here?
Yeah, I'm just gonna let her go just right up here and let her go on her way.
Can you tell the gender?
Well, yeah, and it looks like a female to me. They're not 100% easy to gender identify.
I can hold it if you want.
Oh, we got it.
Does that help?
Yeah, it's ready. It's okay. All right. Let's see. All right, we'll let you be.